Good morning, good morning. We're back in my little spot. And today I want to talk about projections, but more specifically, projections in dating. I find humans to be fascinating. Like humans are constantly leaking our own psychology onto other people. I think the projections are completely normal, but I think the personal responsibility comes in where you kind of have to be able to take a step back, recognize when you are projecting, and kind of ask questions to go against that a little bit. You got to be able to ask and not assume. Like a projection is where you assume someone is a certain way because of your own psychology, but emotional baggage is kind of different. That's assuming that someone will do something based on what somebody else did. Because that doesn't really make sense, does it? If one person is from this walk of life with these experiences and all of this kind of stuff, then it doesn't really make sense to assume the exact same thing for a different person with a different walk of life and different experiences. You know what I mean there? It's kind of related, but it's still different. Projection is when we assume that other people think this way because we think this way. It's assuming that others will value what we value. Also, projections is assuming another person's intentions because those are our intentions. Sometimes you assume people will have good intentions because you do, but that's not always the case, And sometimes people assume bad intentions because that's what you are trying to do. You gotta be able to clock yourself. So when you sit there and you assume intent from another person, think about it. Is that what you are trying to do? Because listen, I have given people so many breaks, maybe more so than they deserve, because I always assume good intent. I assume it. And sometimes people don't even recognize that that's their own psychology. They place it onto somebody else, but what was your intent in your behavior? You get what I mean? Like for me personally, I've dated white guys, I dated black guys, I dated Asian guys. But when I date a white guy, he assumes that the other men I've dated before him are white. And the same thing with black guys, and the same thing with Asian guys. My whole point is everyone kind of does the same thing. But for me, I don't really have a physical type. I kind of date across the board. And so, I don't really ever assume that somebody else's past dating history is also going to be one type. But you can also call that as projection because that's my dating experience. You get what I mean? So I always try to ask questions, and I do think that a part of the fun in dating is getting to know a new person, getting to know a new personality. I assume that's kind of normal, and honestly, most of the time, I'm probably not too far off, but that's why I tend to ask questions because that's how you keep yourself in check. I do think that my dating history kind of comes from the way that I think as well. I'm not a person that thinks bottom up or top down. I don't think in a hierarchical way. I think horizontally. So I'm kind of able to recognize a lot of different patterns and things like that of things that seemingly don't connect because that's just how my brain works. I look for the patterns. And so usually when I date people, they're kind of different from me. I love me, but I also spend all day with me. And so I try to date the people that are a little different. I want a certain different flavor, and because I'm more of a creative person, I would say, I'm always looking at art and film and music and all of this kind of stuff. I tend to date guys that are a little bit more, I guess, structured thinking. For me, if I dated this person and it didn't work out, why would I date the same one again? So I try to date different types. I'm I haven't dated one of you yet. But also when I say I don't have a type, that's also not fully the truth. I know this is very strange, okay? I have dated guys from different races, different jobs, different positions, different nationalities, everything. But then I'll find out one day, or they'll come to me nerding out about an Excel sheet. How am I supposed to tell people that my type is Excel men? And it's not I even do it on purpose. Every guy I'm attracted to, either a few days, a few weeks, or a few months later, they'll start nerding out to me about Excel. Why do you have a favorite Excel formula? I can't relate. I can't relate. I'm more of a creative thinker. And so I think it's fascinating that I keep getting attracted to Excel men. What? I did it again. What? I grew up with an autistic brother, and back in the early 2000s, autism wasn't something that was really widely talked about. So my mother ended up helping a lot of other autistic moms as well on how to deal with their children and things like that. She also spent a couple years as a special ed teacher as well. And so I've always kind of been around this space, and it's always made me very interested to observe in how people think. Yeah, so I was seeing this guy for a little bit, and I was telling him kind of a little bit of that history, and he went white-faced and kind of just stared at me. And it turns out his ex before me was also working with child development and autistic children. And he was like, what the fuck? Like, he did it again too. You know, like, I think that's so fascinating. And yeah, later on, he was like, yeah, I do think that I'm a little oddie. And I'm like, I mean, a little bit. This is my own personal thinking, but I think that a lot of times we date people with certain traits and things that we admire or we might not even have in ourselves, or we do have those in ourselves. But we also kind of want to get a little bit more so that way. Yeah, like I'm a creative person, and so I like logical people because they kind of add structure to my thinking. And I do think that in return, I give them a little bit more room to relax, you know, a different kind of way of thinking about things. Like they give more structure to my ideas. Do you get what I mean? Like sometimes I'll go on a rant, I'll be like, oh, and then they'll look at me and like summarize it, and it's way more like bullet point style. Like I think it's fascinating. The human brain loves to have categories. The human brain is constantly trying to categorize things to make sense of the world. Sometimes people will categorize other people and also categorize themselves. And so once they place this category on themselves, like they start to become more and more, I guess, like stereotypical. But like, yeah, if you attempt to put me in a category, good luck. You know, good luck. I'm a lot of things. I know that. And because I think a little bit more horizontally, I am a little bit more loose in my categorizations of people, I think. But yeah, I do like confuse quite a few people. Stereotypes are also fascinating to me too. It's like with the Asian stereotype. When guys say that, oh, I like Asian women or something like that, I'm like, you're gonna have to be a little bit more like specific about that, because if you like Asian women because you think that they're more demure, more softer, all of this kind of stuff, yeah, that doesn't apply to Southeast Asia, okay? Southeast Asian women are like a little bit of a different breed. And I'm like half Vietnamese myself, so trust me, I can say this with experience. Yeah, Asia's a big ass continent, you know? And if you use geography to explain personalities, like that's not the same thing. Like I've had multiple men try to categorize me into, you know, like you must be the type that dresses up, likes nice things, you must not eat street food. Like, are you kidding me? If I go on a date with a guy that doesn't eat street food, it's like date over, you know, like growing up, my mom would have beat my ass if I was like, ew, street food. Ugh. And I would never accept that from another man either. I'm Vietnamese, you know, like one of my filters or whatever is like, do you eat fish sauce? Because it is important, okay? Like imagine if you told a French person, no cheese in the house. Like what? That's like a crime. Like one of the hottest things a guy could have is like a spice rack in his house. Yeah, because listen, I have unseasoned chicken trauma, okay? And so I love it when a guy can like eat with flavor. And that is also like one of my projections, you know, like from my dating history. Listen, some people don't know how to eat with flavor. I'm like, how? What? And that comes from like my own experiences and like my own background. You know what I mean? Also, like I tend to date a little bit of older men. I tried younger. No, thank you. No, thank you. But it's more so just like a statistical game type of thing, because if you're older, you have more time. So it's more likely that you kind of have your shit together. There was this one guy that I was seeing, and so I assumed that, you know, he probably hadn't dated that much like younger women. And so I asked, I was like, hey, am I like one of the first younger you dated? He was like, yes. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, do you usually date your age? Turns out that was a projection, because he actually told me his type before me was older women. I was like, wait, what? And he told me the reasoning, and he said that, yeah, because, you know, older women, like, it'll be less drama, or like they have more of themselves figured out. And I was like, oh my God, we have the same MO. It's statistical thinking. It's a game of numbers. I do think a lot of the times, like insecurities and like little things like this is actually a person's biggest block when it comes to dating. So like, I don't really have a physical type. I've dated tall, short, all this kind of stuff, but I do have a rule that the men must be taller than me. And that's totally fine. I'm like 5'4", okay? Like the bar is not that high. And so I had a boyfriend that he was taller than me, but he wasn't taller than me in heels. And every time we went out clubbing, he'd be like, can you not wear high heels? And like, listen, I'm gonna wear high heels. Okay, that's not gonna stop me. And he was like, yeah, but like when we walk in, people will think of us this certain way. And I'm like, dude, if you walk into a club with me towering over you in heels, trust me, they're not gonna be thinking that. Okay, like that is a projection that is stopping you from actually enjoying your time. Like I remember I was on a date with this like bald man, and he asked me like, do you like bald men? And I was like, what? I'm literally on a date with you right now. But I didn't say that, you know, I was just kind of like, I just pointed at him and he got the message. I was on a date with this other guy and he was like, why would a girl like you want to be at dinner with a guy like me? And I was just like, have I already not been seeing you like for a while? Have I not been spending days on end with you? Have I not been spending my entire weekends with you? But instead I just told him because I want to. You know, like just ask first. Like, don't be assuming things because you just don't know where the other person is actually at yet. You know, the whole dating process is about getting to know each other better. I'm way more observant than I let on. Like, I do think you can tell a lot about a person's way of thinking and stuff by kind of just listening to them and like paying attention. You know, like there was this one guy that said to me, oh, your friends must be all like you, like all very like fashion forward and hot and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, my friends are different fonts, but I probably know what your ex was like. That's an assumption. You know, you can always ask to verify later, but usually I'm not that far off. But yeah, if I'm wrong, then cool, I learned something. And if I'm right, then my logic was not too far off, you know, but I do try to take all dating experiences as like new, and sometimes you kind of have to go against your own thinking a little bit. You kind of got to like deprogram a bit. But if you assume that you know where things are going to go and you assume all that kind of stuff, then that's also like your biggest obstacle. You know, like get over yourself is what I'm trying to say. Like maybe it's because I was in entertainment and in the public eye, so I'm quite used to people making assumptions about me. And so it doesn't really bother me that much, honestly. But I have this thing where when people assume things about me, I never correct them. Like why do I need to? You know, if you are curious enough, you will ask. And if you don't ask, well, you probably won't last that long anyway. You know what I mean? Like we're probably not that compatible. Because if you're just making assumptions and running with it, you're not dating me, you're dating a version of me in your head. Clock it. Projections are completely normal. Like everyone does it. But like I said, it's on you and your personal responsibility to not hold those assumptions as, you know, things written in stone, and actually ask, verify, stay curious, and get to know the person you're dating rather than letting a past person or whatever dictate your future with a new person. You know, like that's not fair to them. That's not fair to you. And so I kind of try to stay that way too when I'm dating because yeah, every person's new, you know, every person's different. I mean, I try to pick different types, you know, it's not my fault that they keep liking XL. Like, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I hope you guys like this video. I'm going to put a link down below to all of my other sit and yaps. And yeah, I'll see you next time.